here. But what I want you to notice is that this road that we have here, although it might seem like, man, where's the end destination? We know that it's paved. We know that it's going towards something specific. And I always want us to think about this image mentally and visually when you're going through a tough time, because although it might seem like you're in the middle of the desert, I can promise you you're going to get to the other side of that, whether it's something personally, whether it's something professionally, whether it's a deal, whether it's a negotiation you're trying to handle. There's always a lot happening in our lives. And what I want us to do is really, again, get some perspective back today as to, okay, that's right. This is what my purpose is. Here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing it, and kind of reset and realign. So if you're good with that, just type in yes in the chat. If you've already fallen asleep, just put a bunch of question marks. But if you're ready to start to get some perspective on our situations, kind of realign and get ready for the future growth that we have here in April, May, June, all the rest of the year, just type a yes in. There we go. We got a yes in the chat. Awesome. All right. So first thing we have to think about is a gentleman named Vilfredo Pareto. So Vilfredo Pareto, what the heck are we talking about? So Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist. And what he realized in doing economic equations and when looking at the farms throughout Italy, when looking at the wealth in Italy, he started to realize that, man, about 20% of families have about 80% of the wealth. And interesting to see that about 20% of the farms produce about 80% of the crop. And he started to look at this principle and he started to say, okay, what am I realizing here? It's that if human beings focus on the 20% of either their activities, their investments, their relationships that yield 80% of the result, they will grow. It's an undenying fact. And so Vilfredo Pareto realized, okay, I've got to understand how to put this into terms. And what you'll notice, guys, this is what we call the Pareto principle from Vilfredo Pareto, also known as the 80-20 rule. And here's what I want us to look at. On the left-hand side, you'll see this is typically, you can see it says common. This is typically where human beings are operating. They're putting 80% of their effort into things that are not yielding the same amount of result. They're giving about 20% of their results. And this is why so many people, and you might feel this way as well right now in your business and your personal life, that, man, I'm super busy, but I'm not being productive. I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm not seeing a lot of result from it. What is going on? We're in the fourth month of the year. We know that 97% of people within the first 7 days of the year have already failed their New Year's resolution. So we're 4 months in now. We're in quarter two of the year. So if it feels like we're being super busy, but our business isn't yet where we want it to be, or it's not aligned and tracking with our goals, don't be hard on yourself. You need to take a deep breath, but you got to realize, okay, there's some adjustments that I have the opportunity to make. And this is what I want you to focus on. I want you to start to apply what's called the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle is also, again, known as the 80-20 rule. And what you'll see is that typically 20% of the actual activities that we devote ourselves to, that we add value to, that we focus on and nurture will yield us 80% of our results. So what does this mean in, real words, right? Well, if I ask you right now to put in the chat, hey, tell me, what are 5 things you could do to grow your business in the month of April, May, June, July, through the rest of the year? I guarantee you would tell me, well, I could do more direct mail. I could hold more community events. I could do more door knocking. I could hold more open houses. I could make some calls. I could reach back out to my sphere of influence. Right there, we've got 6 or 7 ideas that if we simply focus the majority of our time on those things, those income producing activities, our business would grow. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. So what I want us to think about right now is, all right, if I'm being honest with myself and I'm looking at my personal life and I'm looking at my professional life and my business and my activities every single day, am I majoring in minor things? I'll say that again. Am I majoring in minor things? What that means is, do I spend a lot of time just kind of doing things that are busy that make me feel like I'm supposed to be growing, but I'm really not doing anything? Right? That's majoring in minor activities. What we want to do is focus on those income producing activities, the 20% of our actions and of our activities, and focus right there. Because when you do that, you will grow. Now, here's what I want you to think about, and I want you to take a note. And Jaime, you're exactly right. The 80-20 rule. That's it. That's what the Vilfredo Pareto principle is. It's called the Pareto principle. It's called the 80-20 rule. But it means if I focus on the 20% of things that will actually grow my business, I will grow. And so here's what we need to think about. If we want to stay aligned, we want to gain perspective, we need to realize, number one, that you, where you are today, are absolutely a leader. Now, you might hear me say that and say, well, I don't have a certain title, Steve, or I haven't closed a certain amount of volume, Steve. None of that matters. What matters is what you're thinking and believing right here, because every single day, someone is watching you and being influenced by you. And all that leadership is influence. And we know we've worked with people who can be a really amazing, positive, empowering influence. And we've also worked with people who can be a negative and draining influence. And what we have to think about is, man, as a leader, who am I being every single day? Because again, if we're focusing on gaining perspective, what is it? Who do I want to be? How do I want to lead? Why do I want to be a leader? A lot of people think that leadership is something that's exciting. And a lot of people think that leadership is something that is really easy to do. It's not. It's difficult. It's a responsibility you take on every single day. And so here's three words I want you to write down. And I want you to put a star next to clarity or circle it, do whatever you can. But first of all, as a leader in the marketplace today, and as someone who is really gaining perspective on their situation and is going to help others have perspective on the situation, I need you to know the direction that you're traveling. I need you to know the direction that you're traveling. If we zoom out for a second, we look at our background here, guys, we've got this road, again, cutting through the desert. If that road doesn't have a clear purpose and a clear direction, there's no point in even starting it. But this is what a lot of people feel like at the start of the year. And now 4 months into the year, they're like, man, I started to pave this road, but I'm starting to lose some steam. Well, go back to the Vilfredo Pareto principle that we talked about, the 80-20 rule. And so again, as a leader, you need to have clear direction. Okay. You need to also have confidence. If you're hearing me right now, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording back, please write down confidence does not equal arrogance. Confidence does not equal arrogance. So many people think that, man, if I'm confident in my abilities, if I'm confident and I know how to explain my value and explain the value of my partnerships with companies like Forbes Global Properties, Luxury Portfolio International, man, that might come off as kind of almost rude or arrogant at some point. No, that's not true. It's only going to be rude or arrogant if you are rude or arrogant about it. Confidence is knowing your value, and people want to work with others who have confidence in their field. You don't want to work with a surgeon who's like, yeah, I think we'll be okay. I'm going to pull up YouTube on my phone halfway through and I'll watch some instructions on how to do it. That's not going to give you any confidence, right? So you need to have confidence in your abilities. And this last one is key. This is what I had you put a star next to: clarity. Clarity as to your purpose, not even just in real estate, but first off, out of the gate, what is the purpose that I want to have? What's the kind of impact that I want to have in 2026, in 2027, in 2036? Am I clear on my actions? Because again, if we think about the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, if you don't feel like you're clear right now, April 6th, 2026, it's not your fault, but today is the day you have an opportunity to take ownership of it. Talk to your manager today. Say, you know what? Joanne, I'm not really feeling like I'm clear on what to do. Can you help me? I promise you, any manager that's on this call right now, any manager in your office will say, absolutely, let's schedule some time. Let's get you clear on it. That's what we're here for. But if you don't have clarity today, don't go another day being confused. Don't go another day operating in an unclear manner, because again, we'll be talking in May and you will feel like you've been really busy throughout April, but not productive. So write these three things down and think about this. When it comes to your perspective, when it comes to your growth, when it comes to your business development direction, where are we heading with this thing, right? Confidence. Am I confident in my ability? And do I know how to articulate that? And am I clear on the path in that direction that I'm going? These are absolutely key. Now, we also have to look at this. We're talking about leadership. And I want you to remember, again, you, where you are right now, you are a leader. But here's the deal. A lot of people don't even understand what leadership means. And a lot of people don't even understand what the difference is between being a good leader and a great leader. And if we don't have these definitions, we're not going to know what we are striving towards every single day. Okay, so what we said earlier, leadership means one thing. Leadership equals influence. And again, we can either positively and empoweringly influence people, or we can negatively influence people. We know what that feels like. But what's the difference of a good leader and a great leader? And I want you to put in the chat right now, what type of leader do you want to be every single day? Do you want to be a good leader, or do you want to be great and empowered and exceptional leader? You tell me in the chat, right? And this is up to you. It's your decision. But the way you answer this is going to really determine how you grow your business in 2026, in 2036, in 2046. Do you want to be a good leader or a great leader? Now, I can guarantee you we all want to put in great, right? And that's exciting. But do we know even what is the difference between a good leader and a great leader? Well, a good leader, if we think about it, if we are running a race, if we have an objective, if we're trying to close the deal, right? The good leader is someone who's getting everybody to the finish line, everybody to the closing table, and things close. Boom. Frank, I love that. That's a strong point right there, Frank. I want to be led by example. Remember, we're all leading people by our examples every single day. And that's exactly right. The worst thing you can ever hear someone say as a leader is do as I say, not as I do. That's the opposite of leadership. That's the opposite of effective leadership. Okay. So a good leader gets everybody to the finish line, gets everybody to the closing table. Perfect. But a great leader, and this is the biggest differentiating factor, and this is where I continue to say, go talk to your managers today. They are great leaders. Why? Because a great leader is someone who, during the process, while the race is being run, while the negotiations are happening, and we're getting towards the closing table, they are educating everybody involved. And that's what a great leader does. A great leader develops people along the way. I'll tell you right now, there's someone that I'm talking to who's on this call because I'm trying to help one of my family members with a deal. And she's helping me figure out different things every step of the way. That's a great leader. That's someone who's willing to take time to develop you. So think about this. If you're a parent, if you're a business owner, which you are watching this call, are you developing anybody while you're going through these processes? Are you developing any new skills? Because if not, you're being a leader and it's probably pretty good, but it's not exceptional. And it's not to the level that you deserve and that people around you deserve. Okay. So that's the biggest difference. What are we going to do to start to go from good to great in our leadership ability, capacity? And really, that's what we're going to talk about throughout the rest of this conversation today. All right. So, biggest question I have for us, because it's easy and it's empowering and it's exciting to understand that, man, there's a difference between being a good leader and a great leader. And hopefully, if you're watching this and if you're still awake, that you have the opportunity to be a great leader literally starting right now. But what stops us? I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that stopped me for the longest time was fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of other people's perceptions of me, all these other things. And that's what usually stops us. I'll tell you right now, your biggest limiting factor is usually what's happening in the story we're telling ourselves right here. Now, what's so interesting and empowering about that is when you flip that story, this will be your strongest motivator. This will be your strongest support system, because the thoughts that we have every single day are leading into the habits that we have. And the beliefs that we have and the habits that we're acting on every day are going to equal the outcomes of our life. It's just that simple. Like I said, if I asked you, what are the income producing activities that you could focus on? And we said cold calling, we said working your sphere of influence, we said door knocking, direct mail, running ads on social media. We know those things, but what stops us from doing anything about it, right? That's the biggest factor. And so again, we have to realize, okay, if I'm hearing Steve talk about this right now, and I'm starting to understand that there's some things I might not be doing to 110, 115%. Don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. Give yourself an opportunity, but you need to take ownership of those things. Nothing's going to change unless we do. And I'm saying that to myself as well. So don't be offended by this. Take ownership of it and let this Monday, April 6th, be that pivot point for you. I want you to look back in a year and be like, man, I'm so glad I took ownership of that. I'm so glad I went and spoke to my manager and they helped me structure my business. Okay. Now, these things sound good, right? We're starting to understand it. The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, the differentiating factors, what makes us a good leader versus a great leader. But how do we continue this momentum on? Well, I want you to take a note and draw this picture out right here. Okay. I want you to draw this out. I want you to write 3 core environments. And on the left-hand side, write or draw out 3 rectangles, or just give yourself enough space to write in what these 3 things are. And then on the right, I want you to draw 3 triangles with 3 arrows going counterclockwise. If you remember anything from this conversation today, first off, is that you got to give yourself grace and start to take ownership. But second, you need to pay attention to these 3 environments. I want you to take a picture of this mentally or take a screenshot of it. Again, we'll send out the recording so you'll have it. This is critically important because, like we were just talking about, our actions are built by our habits, and our habits are built by our belief system. And our belief system is only built by those and the things that we are influenced by. So if you grew up in an environment where a teacher told you you're not good at this or not good at that, I can guarantee you there's still a part of you today that believes that. If you had a parent that told you weren't good at something, I can guarantee you there's still a part of you that believes that. And that could be the thing holding us back. That's all part of the environment that we were in. So I need us to get clear today. If you actually care about growing your business, if you actually care about enhancing your life, I'm going to need you to write these 3 things down. Okay. So in every single environment in life, there are going to be what I call PPH. Okay. So I want you to write this in PPH. You can see it. We have a P up on the top, a P in the second triangle, and an H on the triangle on the right. And what this stands for, this P on the top, this first triangle is people. People. In every single environment of your life, personally, professionally, you're around people. And that is the most important decision that you make. Who am I spending my time around? If you maybe heard it when you were growing up, hey, a parent could have said, show me your closest 5 friends and I'll show you your future. That's 100% true because that's who you're being influenced by. They're influencing this, which then influences your activities, your habits, and your behavior, therefore your outcomes. So the people, I need you to get extremely clear today when we go through this environment exercise, who are the people in my life? Okay. Now, the second P down here on the left triangle is places. Places. I want you to write that down because we all know that when we spend time in and around certain places, we're going to be around certain people. And we know when those places that we're spending our time are actually really helpful and empowering. And we also know when they're not. And the biggest thing is we need to take ownership and realize, okay, am I spending time mentally or physically in places or around places with people who are not helping me grow? Got to get clear on that today. Okay, one place that I think you should spend some time every single day that is going to be an empowering, positive place is your office, your Kai's office, your Illustrated office. Go into that office. That is a place, that's an environment that will have people in it that are empowering you, that are pushing you, that are positively challenging you. That is how you grow. Because as I told you, the people you spend your time with, the place you spend your time at are going to build the habits. That's what this H stands for, the habits of your life. And guess what? As human beings, we have anywhere between 60 and 85,000 thoughts every single day. And our habits are happening without us even thinking about them, right? That's essentially when you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you do. It's the first thing you feel. We've just habitualized ourselves to feel and think those things. You can change it if it's not empowering you. So the first environment, now that we're clear that I've got to really be honest with myself and say, who am I spending my time with? Where am I spending my time at? And what are the habits that I currently have? The first environment is a negative environment. Okay. Now, a negative environment, think about the people in a negative environment. When you say, hey, so here's my goals for 2026, here's how I want to grow. Hey, I'm going to join the Stevens session at 10 a.m. every Monday morning to try to grow myself personally and professionally. They're going to be ripping you apart for that. They're man, why are you going to waste your time? You're not going to get anything out of that. Why are you setting these goals? You're not going to achieve them. You don't know anybody who's ever grown their business that fast. Why are you willing to make it hard for yourself? Just don't do it. It's not worth it. You should probably just give up. Now, people might say things that directly, or they might almost insinuate like that. But those are people who are being negative. And this could be family, this could be friends. And for some reason, we think that we owe them our time because they are quote unquote family or friends. That's not true. If you're spending your time around people who are negative, you're going to be around negative places and you're going to create a negative environment around yourself without even recognizing it. This is not going to help you. This is not going to help anybody around you. And this is when we have habits where if the alarm clock's going off, we're snoozing that thing for 2 hours. We're not going to the gym. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're not eating the right foods. We're not making the calls that we should. We're not following up with customers or sphere of influence the way we should because we're thinking, you know what, man, it's just probably not going to happen for me this year because this is what this person said. And man, if I look at this other top producer, I see that they're really doing well in their business. It's their year. It's not mine. You need to get rid of anything in this environment. And I guarantee you, if you are honest with yourself, we can recognize some place personally and professionally where we may have a negative environment. And what I want you to get clear on is who are the people I'm spending my time with? What are the places I'm spending my time at? What are the habits that I have that are negative? What are the conversations that I'm having? And what can I do to get farther and farther away from that? It's extremely important to separate yourself from a negative environment. Now, the second environment here, you still have people, places, and habits, but it is complacent. And I'd like you to write that down. This is what I call the couch syndrome. Now, what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong if you need to, sitting on the couch at the end of the day, recharging a little bit, if that's the purpose of why you're doing it. But if we're ignoring everything, if we're procrastinating, if we're putting off calling that customer because the property still hasn't sold, we still haven't gotten any offers, it's not going to work out for us. And so what we want to think about, a complacent environment is when anytime you try to start to do things differently, you try to wake up earlier, you start to go to the gym, you start to eat healthier, you start to read instead of binging Netflix, you start to cut out sugar, whatever it may be, there's going to be people around you, man, why are you waking up so early? you're making it harder for yourself. Why are you willing to have those hard conversations with your spouse? Wouldn't it be easier if you just ignored it? Why are you willing to call that customer back when they get the list track report and give them an overview on it when you know it might be a tough conversation? Because you're not being complacent, but everybody and everything around you is trying to cool you off. And there's a story, this is an interesting story, of the story of the crab. This is true. So scientists put 3 or 4 crabs in a bucket together, okay? And one of the crabs realized, all right, if I start to climb up the side, I can grab with my claw the top rim of this bucket and pull myself out. Now, believe it or not, right as that crab was about to pull itself up and out of the bucket, all the other crabs grabbed it and pulled it right back down. Think about that. Why were they doing that? Well, maybe they were doing it because they were trying to protect the other crab. They don't know what's out there. It could be dangerous, right? But they also realized, man, I'm not trying to grow out of here and get out of here, so you're not either. That's a complacent environment. They might have been doing it out of the goodwill of their heart, thinking that, hey, I'm trying to protect this friend here, but they're not letting that other crowd get out and explore and grow. So you need to realize if there's family right now in your life, if there's friends in your life, if there's colleagues in your life who are trying to keep you watered down and trying to keep you cooled off, trying to tell you that because of this and because of that, 2026, man, it's not going to be a good year. Look at the market now. Look at how rates are up higher. That's complacency. That's even a bit of negativity. And those habits are not going to help you grow at all. So you need to get away from people, places, and habits that are complacent. Now, this last one is where I really positively challenge you all to live. And this is where I try to live. I'm not perfect at it, right? We're human, so things are going to happen, but expansive. An expansive environment is when you're around people who are trying to grow every single day. When they see you up and at it early, they're applauding you, they're cheering you on. They're also up early. When you're around certain places, right? They're people in those places are positively challenging you as well. They're trying to help you get better. They're trying to keep you accountable. They're trying to keep you on track. They're not trying to push you away from these goals. They're trying to push you up even farther. And those habits that you have, this is when you're waking up before the alarm clock. This is when you're calling the customer before they can ever call you to complain or give some kind of issue. This is when you're proactive. You're not procrastinating. You're not waiting for things to happen for you to be reactive. You're out in front of it because you've taken ownership. And so this is what we have to think about today. If we're talking about gaining perspective on our situation, what I mean by that is looking at where we actually are today and being really honest with ourselves. And I need you to do this analysis for yourself in your personal life. Are you more so negative, complacent, or expansive? Now, like I said, we're not going to be perfect all the time. Things are going to happen, but the goal is to recognize quickly where are we and how can we shift back to where we want to be. And in our business, in our financial growth, where are we? Right now in a Steven session, you might feel super expansive and empowered, and I love it. That's great because you're around people right now who are trying to help you grow. But if after this call, you don't go into your Kai's office, you don't go spend time with your managers or other producers there, you might go back to that same environment where it's not helping you continue this momentum. And that's what we have to start to shift. So these are the 3 core environments. And just put a yes in the chat if this made sense to you, or put whatever environment you feel like you're currently living in right now in your business. Okay. Put a bunch of question marks if you've already fallen asleep. All right. But this is really important because we have to get really clear. We're talking about the 80-20 rule. Where am I spending my time and my activities? Then we're talking about the actual core environment of life and business that we are living in. Harry, let's go. Expansive. That's the goal, right? Now, what we have to think about as well, tying this back into leadership and our conversation about perspective and looking at this road on the map here and saying, man, where am I going? Where am I growing? Where am I trying to get to? How am I going to get there, right? If you don't have answers to those questions, don't beat yourself up for it. Go talk to your manager. Go have some one-on-one time. They will help you get clear on all these things. Come talk to me. I'll help you get clear on these things. It's about your direction. It's about knowing where you're going and how you're growing, okay? So what we have to look at is this. There's 2 core cycles of leadership. And when I developed these cycles, I realized, man, this is what we see all the time around us. Whether it's from a previous job you've had and you had a manager or boss who was really great or not so great, or where you are right now in your own personal and professional life. But where we have to get to before we even get into the cycles is asking ourselves this question. Is leadership, and you could take out leadership and put in, is business development a linear process? And what I mean by that, if we think about leadership, does that mean that, hey, you got your real estate license, you're rookie of the year, you become top producer, then you grow and grow and grow year over year, and you just have wins the entire time? If you think about your business development, Every single year is your business growing. Every single year, things getting better. Do you just have easy, customers and everything's so smooth all the time? The answer to this is no, right? Leadership is not a linear process. The growth of your business is not a linear process. We know that sometimes leadership and business development can feel like a roller coaster, right? But what matters is, do we stay on that roller coaster? Do we stay on the ride? And do we know where it's trying to get to, right? And what we have to realize is, okay, if we feel like, man, April, I'm not where I want to be, or maybe I'm surpassing where I want to be, that's awesome. We have to be prepared for things to pivot in a great way, in an empowering way, but have we structured ourselves in our business for that pivot? Okay. So this is what we have to look at. I'm going to go through this list and I want you to answer from the perspective of your business right now. And I want you to be really honest with yourself. And if you're in an office, like the Boca office, the Boynton office, where you guys get together for this, write these things down as a group. But what we have to recognize is, if we're honest with ourselves today, we can actually change things today. If we kind of just, beat around the bush, we're not really direct with where we are, I'll tell you, April's going to be just like it was last year. And what we want to think about is, first question for you, and I need you to write down what you agree with most. In your business, do you feel like you're more so just existing, just kind of getting through things, or are you expanding? So I need you to write down whatever the two you feel honestly like you are relating to, okay? In your business, do you feel more like you're working on things? So, man, I'm working on deals, I'm working on this, working on putting out fires, or are you working towards specific things? Now, in working towards things, yes, you're still going to be working on deals, etc. But do you feel essentially like you're working more so on your business or working to build that business? Okay. Frank says, growing my farm. I love that. Right. Do you feel like in your business, you are going on tangents? A tangent, if you don't know what it is, it's a water cooler conversation where you're wasting time. You're kind of talking about this. It's like the shiny object syndrome. You're chasing things and following things that don't have any real value to your business. Or do you feel like you're aiming at targets? Do you feel like, okay, great. Quarter one's in the books, had a really great quarter one. Here's my focus for quarter two. I'm coming into the Stevens session. I'm coming to the office. I'm meeting with my manager. I'm meeting with concierge. Man, I'm aiming at these targets and I'm hitting these things and exceeding them. Now, in your business, do you feel like you are procrastinating, pushing things off? You know what? That conversation might be uncomfortable, so I don't want to have it right now. I'll wait till tomorrow, or hopefully this person forgets about it, or whatever it is. I got to call the seller and tell them we might have to have a price improvement. Or are you progressing? Progressing is taking ownership and getting 1% better every single day, doing the hard thing first, just getting it done, ripping off the band-aid, moving forward. Because if you've ever had to have a conversation like that, whether it's personal or professional, we know that we typically make those a lot worse and we make it a lot bigger of a problem than it really is. And then when we go and have that conversation, or we go and, do whatever it is we need to do, we're like, man, why did I spend so much time worrying about that? Because we're a human being, right? So if you feel like you're procrastinating, pushing things off, take ownership and focus on progressing. Now, somebody in the chat said, working on my confidence. It's one of the most honest things people can say. I'm working on my confidence. I guarantee you, everybody on this call in one area of their life has an area of confidence that they can develop. And that's a great thing. And it will always be like that. The area of your life might change. But as human beings who are growing and are successful, we're always finding, some people think of them as vulnerabilities, but I look at them as opportunities, some things we can get better at, some things we can grow in. And so if it's your confidence, it's your ability to lead, if it's your ability to communicate, that's great. That's a really good sign. That means you've grown past other things and now we've got, other opportunities to grow. So I love that. Now, overall in your business, do you feel like you are shrinking or do you feel like you are growing? In your business, do you feel like you are shrinking or do you feel like you are growing? Now, one easy way to look at this is financially. Look at this year's this year's February, March to last year's January, February, March, quarter one to quarter one. Look at that. Look at your quarter two numbers from last year, looking at where we're starting off in quarter two today. And if you see that you're below that, if you're right on target with that, if you're above that, just be honest with yourself and start to recognize, okay, what am I doing differently? We can't blame the market. I will say that. A lot of people, it's a knee-jerk muscle memory response to say, well, the market's bad. Well, rates this, rates that. Again, rates today, let's call it 6.5%. If we looked at the 1980s when rates were 13, 14%, don't you think someone from that market would look at this market with a little bit of perspective and say, that's a great rate. You should probably take that rate. Of course, because perspective is the key here. So this is what we're talking about with your business development, with your leadership. If you don't have perspective, you're either going to be really hard on yourself or you're going to be really optimistic. Nothing wrong with that. But we need to make sure that we are gaining perspective and say, okay, 6.5%, sure, it might be lower than what it was when rates were 2%, but that's not the same market. It's not the same reality today. So instead of being negative and dwelling on that and blaming everything on that, and that's why I'm not growing my business, why don't I take some ownership and figure out what I can do today to change that? Okay. There's so many opportunities. Being with the Kai's company, being with Illustrated Properties, you have all the resource and more to really grow. And so it just depends on, are we taking ownership of that growth? Now, I said there's two cycles of leadership, and I need you to draw these out. There's two cycles of leadership. And when I was developing these again, I realized, man, I've worked with people who are in both of these cycles at different times. And again, if we are human being, which we all are, and we're going to be honest with ourselves, there's times where we might see and feel like we're in this shrink cycle. And again, if you want to grow out of that, what you can't do is blame yourself and just be negative and be down on yourself for that. Because if that's the case, you're going to be in that longer and longer and longer. Now, someone says, procrastinating to call the seller to reduce the asking price due to the market to sell, we need to go with a realistic price. Yeah, 100%. It's just setting expectations, right? And having a price improvement conversation, as long as the expectation has been set, it's not a bad thing because you can be objective. You're looking at the market data and you're saying, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I know we've been live for 30 days, 35 days, whatever the case may be, and we listed at $720,000. And we haven't received any offers or whatever the case is. Based on the market data, people are viewing, pull up Listrak, Lydia. You can see the engagement from where around the country and the world people are engaging with the property, but they're not making offers. If you're having obviously tours, but no offers are coming through, give that realistic feedback to the seller. But always remember, a lot of times real estate professionals take this kind of conversation personally. This is not a personal conversation because we do not determine the market. We study the market and adjust accordingly and simply educate our sellers or our buyers on the current state of the market. We know it. If you've been to Ninja, I provide, you decide. But the key is I provide. You have to give them that information and you have to let them know where things are. And it's not about you being unprofessional. It's not about you doing a bad job. It's just the reality of where things are. And people appreciate and respect that when you take ownership of it and you head that conversation and you're proactive in that conversation and you're not viewing it as a, oh my gosh, Joni, we got to adjust this price because it's just not selling. Like I thought the market would be so much better. I know we talked about it earlier, but I'm so sorry. It's not about us. It's not about them. It's about the market and their motivation for selling and why they want to move and the timeline and the goals that they had and showing that, yes, we might have to make a price improvement conversation, but that's a pretty normal part of the process if someone has priced aspirationally. But again, if anybody has issues with that, pricing conversations, price improvement conversations, go talk to your manager, role play with them. They've been through that scenario a million times. They will tell you exactly how to navigate it effectively. And they'll remind you that it's not a personal thing. It's not about you because we don't determine the market. It's about being a professional and educating right now so they know where things are. Okay. So in a shrink cycle, awesome. Awesome. Let's go, Lydia. Love to see that. See, that's good. That's good proactive engagement right there and action. So shrink cycle, 95%. You can see we have 95% here on the screen. 95% of leaders, that's right, live in a shrink cycle. 95% of leaders live in a shrink cycle because remember, just because somebody's a leader does not mean that they're an exceptional leader and does not mean that they're not human beings. They're still like things are still happening in their world all the time, personally and professionally. So what we have to realize is this. In a shrink cycle, the first thing that happens, and I want you to write this in if you've made a note of this, is fail. Okay. So failure happens to everybody. Now, this could be something as small as, man, I overslept past the alarm. But what you'll hear a lot of times with someone in a shrink cycle is things happen to them all the time. Man, I was late to this meeting. Man, I spilled coffee on myself. The traffic on 95. Oh my gosh, that's why I'm late. Well, that's a shrink cycle because we're seeing those things as failures. We're not taking any ownership of them. And this might sound like some of us, right? Especially the 95 traffic conversation. Sometimes those things are out of our control, right? But it's a failure. Something either small or something really large, like the deal fell apart, whatever the case is. You lost the listing. What matters is that leaders in a shrink cycle, this is what happens in the second phase. They feel shame. They feel shame. They feel badly about it. They're humans, right? They have a failure. Man, they lost the listing. They're like, gosh, what did I do wrong? Man, that's tough. Like it just feels bad. It doesn't feel good. Failure does not usually feel good. So they feel shame. Now, this is the differentiating factor. Okay. This is what I need you to all recognize is that what happens after someone in a shrink cycle feels shame due to a failure is they blame. They blame. Okay, they play the blame game. They want to point the finger, or sometimes I say they want to give the finger, right? We can just call a spade a spade. They want to blame the economy. They want to blame the president. They want to blame the market. They want to blame this. They want to blame their cousin. They want to blame their cousin's girlfriend's goldfish. They want to blame everybody and everything else aside from them because it's your fault. It's the team's fault. It's the seller's fault. It's the economy's fault. It's not going to work. That's not going to work. But we've all been in situations like this where there's a failure. And because of that failure, we feel badly. That confidence starts to shrink. That self-worth starts to shrink. Our internal value or our belief of our internal value, it all starts to shrink and we want to blame. We don't like that feeling, get it away, right? So we blame. And guess what happens? If we're doing these things, all we're going to do is shrink. That internal confidence, it gets less. The trust that someone has in us, it gets less. The openness and communication, the dialogue that people are willing to have with you, it's going to shrink. Because if this is something that a leader does to a team, that team's not going to trust them the same way. That team's not going to open up to them the same way because they blame the team. They blame the other person. If the seller has to have a price conversation and we feel bad about it, so we're blaming the market and we're down here, that seller's going to maybe start to think, man, well, what do you have from a proactive standpoint? Like, I get it. The market in the last 30, 35 days might not be as great as it was in January, February, but what are we doing from here? They're still relying on you to navigate them through the situation, right? So what are we doing? So here's what we got to realize. In our personal or professional lives, there's definitely times, even throughout the day, that we might feel like this, right? Yeah, an expired listing. That's rough. But what are we doing about it? It's so easy for us to live in the shrink cycle. I'll tell you, if we think about those three environments, negative, complacent, expansive, this is a negative environment. This is not helping you grow your business at all. This is not helping you learn at all because remember, it's a cycle. This thing will repeat viciously because that same day, let's say your listing expires. Let's say you lose the listing, whatever the case is. That's that first failure. You've gone through the cycle. Well, guess what? You're going to have another failure, not because you're a bad person, because this is part of life. You're going to get all the red lights now. You're going to be late for dinner at home, whatever it is. And this is going to continue. This feeling of shame, blaming, being aggravated now, being tense, the hostility, it's all going to continue. And so I don't think this is an area that you want to live. I know it's not an area that I want to live. So what we want to think about is, okay, if in our personal and professional life right now we are in this area at all, give yourself grace, but realize we want to shift into a growth cycle. And really, we need to shift into this growth cycle. This is that expansive environment that we were talking about, okay? And what you'll notice here is 5%. Only 5% of leaders live in a growth cycle because this is very difficult to do. If we're going to be real with ourselves, this is not a motivational rah-rah thing. This is hard. But I believe you can do hard things, and I need you to believe that. But if you look at anything you've done in your life, you can do hard things. So the growth cycle is something we need to commit to being in every single day as often as we can. Remember, we're humans. Things are going to happen, right? Where all of a sudden we might feel like we're in a shrink cycle. The biggest thing now is that you can recognize what cycle you're in and shift it. Okay. So what happens? What's the first thing that happens in a growth cycle? Now, when I'm training this in front of 50, 100 people in our Kai's offices, I'll ask that live and I'll get people telling me, oh, you take ownership or you learn from it and you grow and all empowering things. And that's the right train of thought. But we have to realize leaders in a growth cycle who are exceptional leaders, they are still failing. They are still failing. They have a failure. They don't get away from failure. Just because they're the best at the best, just because it's someone who's amazing at what they do, doesn't mean that they're now exempt from having failures. No, they're going to fail. They're going to fail. You and I, we're going to fail. But what matters is this. This is the biggest change. They take ownership. They take ownership. Remember, in a shrink cycle, we had fail, shame. Oh, it feels bad, man. And I'm sitting with that shame. And therefore, it makes me want to blame people. But in a growth cycle, we have a failure, something small, something big, whatever. The listing's expired. We didn't win the listing. Price reduction conversation. I am taking ownership of it. If things go really great, that's, for the team to celebrate with. If things go wrong, that's on me. And you know what? We have to take ownership even when things don't directly happen as a result of you. Take ownership. When you start to take ownership in your life of things, man, if it's a spouse who's upset with you and you take ownership, you're going to see I don't have as many headaches anymore. I'm not as stressed out anymore. We're having pleasant conversations now because you take ownership. And what matters is taking ownership builds trust. It builds trust, first of all, with yourself. If you know that, hey, my goal is to wake up at 4 a.m. and you wake up at 4:10, 4:15, you could see that as a failure, but you immediately take ownership. Hey, that's on me. But here's what I'm going to do now to correct this. Take ownership. It's one of the hardest things to do consistently, but it is one of the biggest keys that will open up doors of confidence, of calm, of growth in your life. I've seen this in my own life, personally and professionally. Take ownership. Okay. Then what you'll notice is it's great to take ownership, super, super necessary. But if I just say, yeah, it's my fault. Yeah, it's my fault. Yeah, it's my fault. And the thing continues to happen, we're missing a key point. And that key point is to learn, right? We all heard this when we were kids. Learn from your mistakes or learn from someone else's mistakes so you don't have to make them. But in the growth cycle, when you have a failure and you take ownership, take a minute to debrief. This is what people do in the military. They debrief. Okay, what went really well? What did not go as well? What can we do next to improve it? Imagine if you just did this. For the people in the chat who said they had an expired listing, I know it's painful, but if we take some ownership of it and say, okay, what can I learn from it? What can I learn from a client communication standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a timing standpoint, from a pricing standpoint, from a positioning standpoint, negotiation standpoint? What can I learn? There's gold in there because I promise you, it's not going to be your last listing, okay? Unless you believe it is, right? But if you just take ownership and learn from it, okay, I can move on. I can learn from it. And so that way I can educate either my team about this, I can educate my office about this, I can educate my customers about this, I can learn. And that's the key. That's how you start to grow. And of course, the last step in this cycle is growth. This is inevitable. If you have a failure today and you take ownership of it, even if it stings, and you learn from it, you take your ego aside, say, okay, let me learn. Let me learn. What can I do better? How can I learn from this? How can I apply it differently next time? How can I approach it differently? You will grow because that situation is going to happen again. And now it's not going to be a failure because you will have learned from your original failure how to handle it effectively or how to avoid these situations moving forward. This is how you grow. But remember, as you live in a growth cycle, it's going to be hard because taking ownership, oof, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. But when you start to do this, you will say, man, I'm not having the same arguments I was. I'm not having the same issues with negotiation that I was. I'm winning listings easier. I'm working with more buyers. My business is growing because we're not feeling shame and blaming everybody and everything else. That's where your competition lives. They're playing the blame game. The market this, the interest rates that. You're not focused on those things. Taking ownership, right? Learning from it and growing. If you do this, you will grow. I promise you that. But remember, we're still going to have failures. It's what we do. Do we feel shame or do we take ownership? All right. So just type in the chat. You let me know. What cycle do you want to be in your business? Do you want to be in a shrink cycle? Do you want to be in a growth cycle? It's your call. It's completely up to you. You can be motivated and empowered during the session today. And I love that. But what matters is remember, who am I spending my time with and where am I spending my time at? People and places, because that's going to give me the habits that I have and live by. That's going to give you this cycle of leadership that you live in. So type in the chat, shrink or growth. You tell me, what cycle do you want to be in? It's completely up to you. You tell me. All right, let's go, Lydia. I love it. And Lydia, great example too that you're willing to put in the chat there of having that proactive conversation, not being afraid of it. Yeah, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're not going to avoid it. We're going to handle it. And I guarantee you it's going to be easier than you think. And even if you get some pushback in that call, well, you said this and you said that, we take ownership. We take ownership. We're not blaming. We're not feeling badly about it. We're handling it as a professional. You're a real estate professional. You can absolutely do that. Let's go, team. I love it in the chat. Look at the chat. The chat's growing as we talk. I love it. It's great to see it. Frank with the emoji. I love it. Okay, guys. So if you saw the invitation for this meeting, we talked about gaining perspective on your situation. And I was going to teach you a tool, your internal GPS. And if you look at this and think about it, that's what we've been leading up to this entire conversation. We're building into a tool that you already have built inside of you. We just sometimes lose sight of it. And so this is what we have to think about. All right. What does a GPS do? A GPS is a geolocation, gives a precise location on a map. It uses grid lines. I'm not very techy, so that's about as far as a definition I can go. Now, we all are very comfortable using the GPS on our phone. I know me personally, I use the Maps app on my phone when I travel anywhere. And so if you think about it, we've become so reliant on just plugging it into a GPS and not even thinking twice and getting to our destination. Now, think about it. On the GPS, When you type it in, at least like with Google Maps, it will give you three different options. You can avoid tolls with this option. This can be your fastest route. This can be another option, and you get to choose. Well, it's the same thing in your life every single day. You wake up and you've got a GPS saying, do you want to have a great day, an empowering day? Do you want to have a miserable day? Do you want to have an average day? Your call, you choose which one. That's what we're doing every single day. Every single hour, we're making certain choices, but we're now doing it out of habit because of the environment we're living in. And we might not even realize it, but we're making choices every day. But really, what we got to think about, some questions I need you to answer. In your business, where's your true north? How do you know if you're heading in the right direction? How do you know if you're a little off course? How do you know if you want to take the scenic route? If you don't have any idea, don't be hard on yourself. Now it's the time to recognize, okay, I feel like I'm just going on a trip here, but I don't know where I'm trying to get to. I feel like I'm trying to grow my business, but I don't know to what level. I don't know to what extent. That's very hard to do. Give yourself an end goal. Now, right now, if we know, okay, that's true north, we got to ask ourselves again, where's my direction of travel today? Today, where am I today? Now, this one's key. Whose path am I currently on? Not what path, whose path? Are you on a spouse's path? Are you on something your parent said, a teacher said? Remember, all those things are influencing us. So if you're trying to operate and prove to someone else that you're great or that this and that, you're on someone else's path. You're not running your own race. It's going to take you a lot longer to get there. So let's get clear today. Are you doing things in spite of someone or something else? Or are you doing things to empower yourself and others? It's a huge difference in the way you operate your business. Okay. Now, the last one here is, what path do I need to be on? We all know the path we need to be on, and we're making decisions every day. Am I choosing the empowering, energetic, positive, growing path? Am I choosing the negative path? Am I choosing the complacent path? It's your choice. But right now, if we woke up this morning, we clicked on that miserable path, get over, end that GPS right now, and get over to the empowering one. Okay. You have that opportunity. All right. Now, down here, perspective. Perspective is key. Perspective is key. We got to think, and man, am I in life right now? Am I complaining when there's no Wi-Fi at the restaurant? Am I complaining because the parking spot is too far away, but not realizing the fact that, man, I live in beautiful South Florida. I can walk today. I'm safe today. Where's our perspective? What about when we complain? We say, man, the food is too hot or the food is too cold. We have lost perspective of the fact that we have food to eat, that we're at a restaurant, that we can cook at our house. These things are all fundamentals that we overlook every single day. And that's why we might be a little bit miserable or not as positive and empowering as we want to be. How about when people say, I love it in Florida, especially in the summer, because it gets toasty for sure, right? But man, it's too hot today. Or when it becomes absolutely frigid cold, right, in Florida, and it's hit 55 or 60, and people say it's too cold. What are we complaining about? Where's our perspective? What are we grateful for, right? What about I'm starving? People say that all the time. Are we really? Do we have any perspective on what that means? Because I'm showing you real life personal examples, but the way that we talk about things in our personal life is the same way we talk and think about things in our professional life. Man, interest rates are so bad. Man, because of this, we're not going to get this. Man, because, well, I just saw the CEO of Meta buy a multi-million-dollar property in Palm Beach. I just saw the fact that we can all join this session today. I saw the fact that we've got another day to serve today. What are we focusing on? Who are we spending our time with? If we're spending our time with people who are like this, it's not going to help us. It's not going to help us. We have to shift our internal GPS. We have to gain perspective on our situation. And if you notice, that's what GPS stands for. Gain perspective on your situation. Okay. Now, I teach a lot in acronyms. We've got to start to gain some perspective today. We've got to start to gain some perspective. We have amazing opportunities. Being here with the Kai's company, being here with Illustrated Properties, we've got all the opportunity we want. 2026 could absolutely be your most dominant growing year. Just depends on the perspective we have. Depends on what we're telling ourselves. Depends on what actions we're taking, how we're staying committed to those things. That's why I continue to emphasize it's the first week of April. Do we even remember our goals that we set 4 months ago? If not, give yourself a chance, but we got to reset here. We got to get really clear and gain some perspective on our situation. Some questions to ask ourselves is, man, we might get really stressed out sometimes. Taking a deep breath to say, why am I actually upset about this? And what am I actually upset about? How can I solve this? When you start to shift it, you're taking ownership. That's a game changer. Now, another great one. Let's say that you're in a negotiation, something in business that you've never figured out how to handle before because you've never been here. Ask yourself, who have I seen in a similar situation? How did they handle it successfully? That's the key. How do they handle it successfully? Because remember, there's not a lot that's new, right? You can go to your manager with any situation under the sun when it comes to real estate. They've been through this. They've given people sage advice on this before. Go talk to them. Go get that successful feedback. They will help you navigate through it. Then, of course, asking ourselves, do this when you're brushing your teeth. What am I grateful for? Do this when you're at a red light instead of going on your phone. What am I grateful for? What are the blessings in my life? Can you imagine if we simply asked ourselves those two questions to start the day? How different our day would be? What kind of perspective we would have in our day? What kind of things we would not be thinking about now, not be saying out loud? Things that we'd be thinking about and focusing on and talking about would be empowering and completely different. This is all about perspective. And that's your internal GPS that you have. How are you gaining perspective on your situation every single day? And a question you want to ask yourself, do I think that pretty much every single day things are happening to me or things happening for me? Huge difference. If things are happening to me, that means, oh, woe is me. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. If things are happening for you, man, I got this red light and maybe it's going to help me stay safe. Maybe it's going to help me actually get there in a different way. Maybe things happening for us. When you start to think like that, the gratitude increases, the perspective increases, your life gets better and better. And that's how you get to grow your business more because that's who people want to be around. You all of a sudden are that expansive environment we talked about. Now people want to do business with you. Now people see you as a professional problem solver. Now people see what you're doing and they're really appreciative of it because you're being different than what most other people are. Most people automatically default to negative or complacent. Okay. Few things I need you to think about. Again, as a leader, first thing I'm going to do is gain sight. Where am I right now? Be honest with yourself. In my business, where am I? Do I even have a pulse as to where things are? Now I want to start to see opportunities first as well. Not because I'm better, but because I'm looking at things through a different lens. I have a different perspective. When you have that perspective, you're going to see things clearer as well. Opportunities in your personal and professional life. You'll be able to see further down the road. Man, if I make this decision today, how's it going to impact me and my business and my customers a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road? You're going to also now want to start to empower others to see, right? It's not about me, me, me. It's about we. How are we growing? How can we get there? Remember, a good leader is someone who gets the team to the finish line. A great, exceptional, purposeful leader is someone who's developing the people that they're with on that path while they're running the race. That's empowering others to see. You always want to see what others see as well. See what they see. Get some perspective from other people, right? You can learn so much just talking to other people and gaining their perspective. And all these things will help you see more. They'll help you be more. They'll help you grow more. And that's really the goal in 2026. The whole goal is to understand, okay, if I zoom out right now, what path am I on? Whose path am I on? Is it the one that I'm meant to be on? Am I growing and developing and empowering people in the way that I have the opportunity to? And so that's what I want to walk you guys through today. And it's a reminder for me as well, right? I'm not coming at this saying I've got this perfectly down. No, it's just life, right? And we've just got to remember, okay, what part of the path am I on? Whose path am I on? There you go. Gain perspective of your situation. That's what GPS stands for. Gain perspective of my situation. When you start to add in some perspective, your entire life will change. And try to gain some perspective today. After this call, sit for a few minutes and think, man, all right, things might not be as bad as I thought they were. I've got some perspective, and here's how I can operate forward. Because we've all got an opportunity to serve, and that's how you'll grow your business. Focus on serving, not selling, and you will absolutely grow. But yes, GPS, your internal GPS, gain perspective on your situation. I hope you were able to take away something from this today, guys. Really enjoyed having the time this morning with you in this first week of April. It's an exciting time. You've got huge opportunities ahead if you believe it. And you're with the best brokerages to help you with that. The Kai's Company and Illustrated, you've got all the resources, all the training, 100 years old, 50 years old. Everybody's here to help serve you. So I'm glad that you guys took something away from this today. Glad there was value for you. Until we meet again next week, we've got a great global broker session next week. But stay safe, stay productive. And if you need anything from me or any of your managers or anybody, feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful week, guys. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.